There's always
seven?
a.
This is 7?
This is episode 7, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so let's give people a minute here to kind of get on. So what happens is Facebook sends out this thing that says Mike Swale is live again. Do you want to click this button? It's a trap. Please click the button. And then at that point, we are live. All right, so that was a couple seconds. We have one viewer. It's probably Sean.
So, all right, guys. Well, welcome to Whiskey and Wisdom, episode 7. As always, we've got the suave Mike Swale with Fairway Mortgage. Got myself, Sean Hayes with Coldwell Banquet Premier, and today we are really excited to have Kate Stapleton with the Family Law Center joining us. So, woohoo!
Welcome, Kate.
As always,
Thank you.
So we want to jump off, as always, real quick into some stuff with the mortgage world. Mike got your Red Friday shirt on there. For some people who may not know what that shirt is, why don't you go ahead and kind of explain that to them?
Sure. So the shirt is something that, it's actually kind of serendipitous, right? Our last episode was about a specific type of T-shirt. And here I am. This is our first episode that we had on a Friday, so you guys haven't seen the Red Friday shirt. So this is something, and you know what? Further serendipitous. Kate has a huge, and we'll get to this, has a huge military family focus as well. So you'll appreciate this. One of the big things that our branch does from a community involvement and charity standpoint is the American Warrior Initiative, which is a organization targeted towards transitioning veterans. So people returning from combat, transitioning out of the military, and how do we help them? One of the things that we do is every Friday we wear red. So remember everyone deployed, RED. Red Fridays. So you'll see me in this casual T-shirt on most Fridays, as a reminder that there are people deployed right now, fighting and working towards peace as well and protecting us here stateside. And so we like to just do this in as a reminder to them. Kate, I think you might actually talked about that. It kind of hits home with me having a military family myself. And so Red Friday, here we go. This is it. We'll get you guys shirts.
Yeah.
There you go, man. Right, rock on. On the mortgage side, any good updates for today, Mike?
Yeah. I got some comments, questions last time. Mike, why are you on this forbearance soapbox? So instead of talking about the soapbox, let me just explain why I've been on it. I've been more soapboxy lately than I have ever been in my life. So the reason this is important is because I feel like it's really leading people kind of down a trap. And so I've been trying to educate people on the specific forbearance issues, why you should stay out of forbearance unless you have to go into forbearance. Again, some people don't have a choice. You got to do it. But really, when you look at this overall, it can really mess up your credit. And I know the government is saying that it's not going to, but the logistics behind what they're saying are completely different. In reality, they're looking at the public in this case and saying, go into forbearance, yeah, have at it. But behind the scenes, they're expressing to the mortgage industry that there are issues. In fact, the servicing guide says if you go into forbearance, you're ineligible from conventional financing for 12 months, and they have not removed that rule. So publicly, they're pushing people towards what's easy to sell as a good alternative to making your mortgage payments, but behind the scene causes a whole bunch of problems for people that they don't understand that they're walking into. So I do feel like it's a little bit of a trap. I know that's a strong word, but until they change all of the stuff that could go wrong, then really it's a trap. So that's why I've been talking about these updates on a regular basis. So you don't want to basically box yourself in unless you absolutely have to. On a positive note, though, refinances are kind of back. So we took a little bit of a break from encouraging people from refinancing because of the uncertainty in the market. It was kind of artificially keeping interest rates a little bit higher than we thought they should be. Interest rates are still really, really in a good place. And so we've kind of opened the faucet a little bit here and said, hey, maybe rates aren't as low as they could be, but if you're paying above a certain level, they're still probably good enough to where we can let some people go ahead and get access to them. There's some challenges in the market, again, because of the forbearance issue, but if you're well qualified, this may actually be a good time to refinance. So please do reach out.
Oh, good information, man. Appreciate you sharing that.
No problem. Sean, what are you saying?
So, as we continue to talk about inventory and waiting for things to, quote unquote, open up again to some degree. We're still very active in the market, but just kind of on another scenario, we're seeing things where obviously about 21 states are going to start opening up to some degree over the next 7 days here. And that is allowing clients who are looking to transition to St. Louis now have an opportunity in their current market in those states to be able to do something, because some of those states were completely shut down. Even if they did not have orders in place, like the state of Indiana completely shut the real estate market down, a lot of markets just didn't have any traction due to the stay-at-home orders. And now that those are being released and expiring, those markets are quickly seeing a lot of activity occur. So if you're looking at an opportunity where clients are coming in from out of state, there's going to be a lot more coming in. We're going to see an influx of those type of clients moving to the St. Louis area right now, because all of a sudden they've been sitting in place for 30, 45 days, and now they have the opportunity to go ahead and make that move to the St. Louis market.
That's awesome. So the stuff that we're talking about, especially the stuff we're going to talk about today, and we have probably the perfect guest on here to talk about how things have shifted and how they're going to shift now that some restrictions in some places are being eased, if not removed, while other places are not. In fact, my wife and I were kind of talking on the ride home yesterday about St. Charles versus St. Louis counties. All of a sudden, we're going to have, I don't want to use a term, but it's going to be a border, right? They used to call I'm from the West Coast, and they called the border between Washington and Canada, there were different legal ages for drinking, and they called it a blood border because people would cross the border and get drunk and then crash on the way back to Washington. So we're gonna have a similar situation where you can't go to a restaurant in St. Louis County maybe, but you can go in St. Charles County. So we should probably talk about that as well. But first, what are you drinking?
Well, today we are going, sad to say, I'm almost out of it. The Balvenie 12 Doublewood, one of my staples. Absolutely love this.
That is the Sean whiskey, yeah.
Might have to replace it with the 14-year Caribbean cast, though, so this bottle's going to be gone here soon.
Kate, what do you got?
Oh, I've got the, let's see, Ecodemani Pinot Grigio.
There you go.
I don't know.
That's a good one.
I know next to nothing about alcohol, but I did recognize it as being on a menu of a restaurant I went to one time. So I thought, all right, it's probably not totally bad. So I picked it up and, just having a blast, drinking my wine in my office.
Enjoying a little bit of peace and quiet without everybody running around, right?
That's how it starts. That's a slippery slope. You see it on a menu, and then all of a sudden you remember it, and you're like, "Oh, I like this wine," and then all of a sudden, here you go.
I'm
drinking in your office, as I'm doing as well.
Yeah, I'm looking to acquire new skills. During lockdown. So if alcohol
is drinking a skill? Because if it is,
it can be.
That's good news. That's great news. Yeah.
Guys, it sounds like, with Mike, with the browsing and in the conversation and the ages of the cask. I don't know what a cask is. It sounds like a skill.
Sure. So I'm recycling one here. I would love to have a new whiskey for every episode, but sometimes one is just too good to not bring back. Again, this is the Cognac cask, Glenlivet 14 years. So it's aged 14 years. It's finished in a Cognac cask. So, Kate, they make Cognac, obviously in a wood barrel, just like they do some wines and some whiskeys. And they remove the Cognac. They input Glenlivet, which has already been aged for 14 years, and it kind of soaks up some of the flavor from the same wood that the Cognac was in. So the cask is just the wood barrel, and there's a little bit of crossover flavor. The way it plays together, this one's pretty good. I enjoy it.
I'll have to ask you guys if there are places in town that do like whiskey flights where you can learn about, whiskeys and do tastings and stuff.
If you want this episode to last 2 hours, just ask us that question.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Not whiskey and wisdom. We'll have a different taste of life.
Absolutely.
Well, awesome. Well, awesome. So let's kind of dive into some stuff here with you, Kate. I know as we were getting started prior to going live on the episode, we were talking about a few topics, and as we all know, dynamics within the household are a different situation right now. Some people it's working out better for, some people it's not working out so good for. It's just kind of how people are personally addressing it, it seems like. So what are some of the things that you're hearing out there from your clients or from your family, your friends, in terms of what's going on with family dynamics in this environment?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's different. Everybody has experienced changes, of course, because of the lockdown. So in my work life, I deal with families who live in two homes, right? They're still family, but they're either separated on the road to divorce, they've been divorced for a long time, or sometimes I have families wherein the parents were never married, but they share custody of a child or children. Okay. So, but really we're all feeling this, and we're all experiencing a major shift and a major increase in childcare responsibilities. So in households where both parents are able to work from home, or wherein there's one parent who's always been at home, I think it might look a little bit different than the families where one parent is an essential worker. For example, a healthcare worker, or even a grocery store worker, somebody who's really on the front lines. On the extreme end, you've got the healthcare workers who are actively treating COVID patients and quarantined. And so some families are really hit hard by this, I think, and there's one parent who's carrying that load of working from home, homeschooling, and then parenting full time. And those people, hats off, my husband's a healthcare worker, but fortunately he's not actively treating COVID patients right now. He wants to be. I think he would welcome that opportunity to help. But at this point, he has not been sort of asked to fill that role. So we're sharing childcare duties. We're working, and I think, like most families, there are some moments when we're really enjoying all this time that we have together with our kids. And then there are some moments when we just really want to get out of the house, and we really want to go somewhere, or we really want to get out of St. Louis. And it's like, it's like,
I have no idea what you mean.
I mean, seriously, I'm just looking up like, okay, what kind of vacation are we going to take when this is over? Because so everybody's feeling it. What about you guys in your homes? How are you guys making it work?
I mean,
Go ahead, buddy.
It's kind of the same thing. We got, the way I like to say is we have all four of us working from home right now, between, my wife working from home, myself working from home, the kids doing homeschooling. It's definitely a different dynamic in the sense that my wife is still working a full day every day. And, we give her space. She's got a carved out office space, and we pretty much just leave her be unless she says it's a time period where we can interact with her. I've got a schedule set up where we're doing homeschooling. My daughter's pretty self-independent at this point. I just have to check and make sure the work's actually been done. And my son, we're pretty interactive in the sense that we're getting the work completed. He's really latched on to this whole Zoom situation where I'll be in one part of the house doing my work, but we'll be sharing his work on a screen share via Zoom so we can interact together and get stuff accomplished that way. It seems to be working out for the most part. They say I am a tougher teacher than their normal teachers. So
good for you.
Yeah.
Here's to that. Yeah. So I mean, and with my business being in real estate, I still have clients who have to make a move. They do not have a choice in this environment. So I have to leave the home a couple times a week and show property. And then we just utilize that opportunity for me to be the one to go to the store, go to the grocery store, take care of things. So I'm the one who's getting the exposure right now compared to everybody else. How about you, Mike? Because I know you've got a little bit different setup than the two of us do in your family dynamic.
Yeah. So you know how when people get on social media and they talk about being blessed, oftentimes it's just a humble brag. So let me tell you that this is not one of those times. this is an area where I just feel incredibly lucky. Like I just lucked out, right? So I've got a teenage son who's very, very self-sufficient. He's not always aware that he shouldn't walk across or interrupt a Zoom meeting, but more often than not, I'm not babysitting him, right? And my wife is pregnant, so we kind of are on both ends of the spectrum, but we don't have the toddlers in the house or school-age children that we have to be overly concerned about that stuff at this point. So I feel like it is pretty lucky. And again, we had just moved into a new house, so I feel really lucky that we got quarantined right after we moved versus right before we moved. And I'm just not a good example of somebody who does not enjoy being in his home, right? But I think that's not terribly rare, right? I feel like there's a lot of people out there who this is a terrible situation, right? But there's a lot of positives that are coming from this, specifically as it relates to our families. I happen to have a wife that I really enjoy spending time with. And so being forced to spend time with her is certainly not the end of the world for me. So I'm good.
Yeah, I've enjoyed spending a lot of time with my kids. So I still need to put in and build the same number of hours as always. But the way that I'm doing it is I kind of break it up throughout the day, and sometimes I end up working at kind of odd hours, and I set a timer on my emails so they go out the next morning so my clients don't think I am up all night. But it's really nice because we'll kind of work for an hour. My kids will read for an hour or something, and then we'll check in with one another. And we've come up with some pretty creative ways to kind of entertain ourselves with some of the more conventional things like laser tag or whatever the more easy go-tos, with those things being closed. And so I think that's been really nice. And I hear that from a lot of people, and a lot of people, you've heard that it's kind of a trope by now that people are predicting either a baby boom or a divorce boom or both.
Right.
After all this is over. So, yeah. And Mike, I don't think you should feel bad about loving it. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. And to your point, I'm still working just as much. There's still just as much to do in this world. And the one thing I will say about having a teenager who is now forced to interact with you more, it's sort of the opposite problem when you have older kids. We've gotten closer because he has got nowhere to go now. He can't escape talking to us and having the next level conversations that go beyond just fine, good, okay. So it's truly been a blessing.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Really,
I mean, you're looking at, from my perspective, and this is, me being, as I like to say, that dad a little bit, but, my kids are not in their normal routine right now. They're not in such a structured environment. They have to be in this place at this specific time, doing this specific activity, or at school at this time. And it's allowed them to really kind of explore some things that are important to them and that they're curious about. I mean, I don't know if either one of you saw, but, being that dad, I posted online yesterday the movie trailer my son made for a horror movie that he shot. And that was great. I'm sorry, it was awesome. We shot, no, seriously, it's a 12-minute movie that he finished yesterday all by himself. And as a result, we shot a trailer for the sequel today that we're going to shoot over the weekend.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
I have to go find it now.
And I mean, this isn't something that if we were on our normal schedule, we wouldn't have the time for. But I mean, just watching him spend literally 4 to 5 hours yesterday doing this, God damn it, I was proud. I was really freaking proud of that.
I'm really thinking about limiting my kids' activities after this. I mean, I think activities have their place, but seriously, going back to every night of the week, plugging the kids to different activities, it's not as appealing anymore. I like
No, it's really not.
Yeah. I think my kids like it too. So good for you guys. That's a great idea. Go James.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about us personally and how family dynamics have sort of evolved and changed. Kate, is there anything else you're seeing, broadly outside of these three examples? Anything that you're noticing?
No, I actually, if it's okay with you guys, I have seen some things in business in general that I wonder if you guys have noticed as well, that I would kind of want to turn the conversation to if you guys are ready.
Let's do it.
Sure.
First of all, I mean, this is a really good example of how everything's gone virtual. And I think that this real need to adopt these virtual meeting technologies can have some really great and far-reaching, enduring effects on a lot of different kinds of businesses. So I had a domestic violence hearing yesterday, which is really like a miniature trial. I mean, we have exhibits and witnesses and everything, and it was all over Zoom. The judge was on Zoom, I was on Zoom, my client was on Zoom, everything, all the exhibits, beginning to end. And it was completely possible. And the thing that is so exciting to me is, I guess, first, as an attorney, as somebody who bills hourly and works to serve my clients in the most efficient possible way, the first thing that comes to mind is kind of small, but it saves my clients some money, right? It's more efficient. The judges can schedule people for a certain time period, and my client doesn't have to pay for me to drive to the court, to wait around, to wait while the other person kind of takes forever to get their stuff in order. But also, I've kind of started to think about this possibility that it opens for people to hyper-focus on their real areas of passion and then use technology to serve people across a much broader geographic area. So I know, like, Mike, you're licensed in like 27 states, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I've taken a couple of bar exams, but I'm not licensed in 27 states. The bar exams are bees. But even if I could just serve more people across the state of Missouri, like if, let's say I wanted to focus on military clients, because that's one of my areas of passion in my practice. Our base is Fort Leonard Wood. That's nowhere near St. Louis. So I don't have a lot of clients from Fort Leonard Wood, right? I can call them, I can consult with them and offer them advice, but I don't often drive out and represent people out there because they don't want to pay for me to drive. They don't want to pay for my drive time. But if courts are willing to adopt these technologies, they've been forced to integrate them into their practice. Let's see if maybe they would consider allowing it in the future. And let's see where this goes. I think it would be really, really excellent and would allow for better representation because people can be hyper specialized and we can serve more people who need us who are farther away.
So you're in the camp that this limited, hopefully limited period of time where we are all forced to adapt to new technologies is going to lead to some pretty permanent, lasting changes, even in some relatively old school environments, such as the court system.
The court. I think it could, and I think I might try to push for it.
That's awesome.
Because,
so,
yeah. We know that they can. We know they have the technology and they've learned how to use it.
Mm-hmm. That's been the big thing, is it's really removed the weirdness. It's not worth the effort to get the other party on, as many times as I would have liked to have FaceTimed or Zoomed with a client. If I had initiated a FaceTime 60 days ago with a client, that would have been weird. And now it's like, I can see, because I started doing it. I've really started doing this. And when I replaced phone calls with FaceTime, and not that I had to, because these are people I wasn't in front of anyway. So I'm not replacing meetings with FaceTimes. I'm replacing phone calls with FaceTimes because the integration with the video technology has become more commonplace. And so even situations that aren't replacements for face-to-face interactions. Now it's becoming more normal. And you could sort of see the transitioning over the weeks. At first it was, hi, Mike. Now it's, oh, hey, you know,
Yeah.
It's just becoming more normal. It really is.
It's kind of like the Jetsons, isn't it?
What's that?
So it's kind of like the Jetsons. I mean, remember the cartoon The Jetsons? They had the video phone calls constantly. I mean, and we always thought that, that's never going to happen. That's not going to be a real thing. It's completely a real thing. I mean, think about this. You have senior citizens, you have grandparents who are stuck at home right now. I mean, both of my kids' grandmas are stuck at home. They can't talk to them, even though my mom lives only 40 minutes away and my mother-in-law lives 4.5 hours away. They talk to them face to face daily right now because of Kids Messenger, and it's completely changed that relationship and that dynamic in this environment.
Yeah, I think that this lockdown period has really kind of inspired people. I was going to say forced, but inspired is just such a nicer word. I think it's inspired people to find new ways to really form those real connections with each other, outside of the traditional way of face-to-face greetings, handshakes, hugs, right? Like how we both have met over coffee. Like my, replacing phone calls with FaceTime. That's really smart. So I hope that some of those things can endure. I think it'll help us to better serve our clients.
Absolutely. I think it does. And I think your point of breaking down geographic limitations to doing business is something that I've been ready for years. And if this helps with that, then I think, I've, like to your point, I've been doing business across state lines. Now it's easier for me because I'm still just as accustomed, but now everybody else is joining me in that expectation. So, Kate, I want to know if you have any other business trends that you're seeing or if anything specific to family law, but let's take a step back. I don't know that we did a good job of introducing who you are and how you got here. So let's take a step back and tell us who you are. What do start from the beginning for us real quick here.
Sure. Okay. So hi, I'm Kate Stapleton. I'm an attorney. I focus exclusively on family law, and I always have. So I graduated from law school in 2014 in Texas. My husband was in the United States Army. So shortly after I graduated, we moved to Hawaii. And then after that, we moved to Washington State. That's where I started my own firm. And so I had my own family law practice there for about almost 4 years. And then we moved to St. Louis at the beginning of 2018, which is actually my hometown. So I was born and raised here, but moved away in, 2006. So it had been a while. But yeah, back here in St. Louis. And I am with the Center for Family Law, but I'm of counsel. So I'm still able to maintain. There's really no definition for of counsel, and it'd be really boring if I tried to define it. But I'm able to maintain. I'm able to maintain my own business practices, and this firm is amazing. I work alongside some really venerable and respected attorneys who've been practicing. Some of them, as long as I've been alive, or maybe even a little bit longer. They're amazing. So. So
you're saying they're old?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I'm just kidding. I said, so you're saying they're old?
One of them won Family Law Attorney of the Year, last year or something. I don't know. They have their experience.
Fair.
Venerable is the word I use. So anyway, I'm fortunate to be here, and I focus on really all areas of family law, but I do have a special place for my military clients because I was a military spouse for several years, and so I speak from time to time. I give it's called Continuing Legal Education Classes to other attorneys on military divorce, because military divorces are so special and so different from other types of divorce. And then recently, I gave a presentation on utilizing technology in this new workplace. So, that's me. And I met these guys I met Sean through our kids' school. We have kids in the same grade. And I met Mike through the Kirkwood or DePere Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
we kind of just started talking because we know each other and
right.
usually have a good time. So we didn't really go into, okay, who the heck is this lady that we've drug onto our podcast here.
Yeah.
So thank you. So what I really want to know before I'm going to turn this back over to you, but I really want to know, you mentioned something that was just really funny to me because I've been hearing the same thing, the baby boom. And so with we got pregnant in January, and so we were ahead of this. So I've been joking that my kid is going to be the leader of the Coronials because he'll be just a couple months. He or she will be a few months older. So, are you predicting the baby boom or the divorce boom? Based on what you're seeing, which way are we going?
Both.
Oh no.
Both. I agree.
People.
I mean, think about it, Mike.
Explain.
It's either going to bring you together or tear you apart.
Yes.
Fair.
Group
Fair.
A is happy and in a position where maybe they were thinking about it anyway. They're going to, come out with a child. Wonderful. Group B was probably thinking about divorce anyway and is not filing now because they're uncertain about their financial future, and they'll file when this is over, unfortunately.
But I will say the baby boom is only going to occur from families that do not have multiple children already. If you have multiple children, you are not probably trying to add to that.
Birth control.
And I'm like, who is going to be quarantined with their kids and homeschooling and working from home? I know.
Yeah, no.
Dot.
So kind of jumping back into the business aspect here a little bit. You brought up the whole change of technology and everything. Are there going to be changes in the legal aspect of businesses because of us using this technology now?
One thing we have to worry about is encryption. And I know Zoom got some bad publicity recently because of encryption, but really, if you have Zoom Pro, it's double encrypted on both ends, and that meets our compliance requirements. So, I mean, we can't have FaceTime meetings with our clients. That's not okay. But there are certain technologies that lawyers can use that meet our compliance standards. Yes.
So you actually have to break it down into the level of security of the different mediums. Because that's not something I think a lot about on a daily basis. FaceTime, Zoom, whatever, Facebook Live, whatever gets me in front of people, I just grab. But you have to think about it a little harder.
Yeah, confidentiality is paramount attorney-client confidentiality is very important.
That's interesting. So I didn't realize that Zoom's encryption is better than FaceTime's encryption. And I didn't realize there were known vulnerabilities with the FaceTime connection.
As far as I know, and I'm not actually an expert on this, so I don't know, maybe an encryption expert. I don't actually know an encryption expert, but maybe they would be the one to ask. But I don't know anything about FaceTime's encryption at all. I don't know if they have it, what level it is. I don't know at all. I never use it for client communications.
Okay.
Yeah. Never.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what else are you seeing?
As far as business?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that attorney services is one of those things that sometimes people, because the courts do try to make things accessible to people so that, I think ostensibly the courts want to believe that the average person could file a case on their own and have a just outcome, right? I don't know if either of you've ever had that opportunity to try to file a case, but I think that somebody who's got an attorney by their side probably has a better chance of understanding what the documents mean and where to find the laws and a lot of the unwritten rules, like which judges are going to have which responses to which things and things like that. So anyway, I think that
can I interject there real quick, because I think all three of us are in that position, right? A client can go online and get their mortgage. A client can do a for sale by owner, or a client can represent themselves in a trial. But there's obviously things that they can't just read online and know, which is where the three of us come in differently, but in the same manner, right?
That's a really, really good point. And I think, with both of you guys, the client is going to save some money, a lot of money, by opting to enlist your services. And in my case, I feel like with a divorce, if I haven't saved my client some money, then my services I haven't really done my job, right? You guys probably feel the same way. Okay. So,
Absolutely.
But in times, I think people sometimes will start to think of legal services as something that they want to try to skimp on, and they might want to try to go with the least expensive attorney, or they might want to try to initiate the case themselves and then hire an attorney once they're in too deep or something like that, right? When they're feeling flushed, they might want to interview several attorneys and hire whoever they feel will give them the best and most efficient and most knowledgeable representation. So, for me, I've noticed that, the volume of cases has not slowed down. We still get a lot of the same amount of inquiries every day of people who are needing our services, but people are reticent to pay the upfront retainer fee. And so for people who haven't really worked with attorneys who charge by the hour, the retainer fee is really, it's not a true retainer. It's an advanced payment of fees that goes into the client's trust. And then the attorney charges by the hour. And as the attorney earns those fees, then she can send the client an itemized bill and then deduct those funds from the trust.
It ticks down.
After they're earned. Yes. And after the client has a chance to look at the itemized bill and verify, okay, I remember getting that document. I remember that court hearing. Got it. Approved. Okay, great. Now you can transfer from the trust. So whereas, I used to charge X amount for a certain type of case for an upfront payment of fees, I might want to charge for like 10 to 15 hours of work upfront. Now I am charging less upfront. My hourly remains the same, but I'm charging less upfront. And that way, I think it makes people feel more comfortable because they're kind of dipping a toe in, right? They can test out my representation. So they might pay for 6 or 8 hours of representation. We work together. I earn their trust. They see how we work as a team. And then that way they don't have a major expenditure up front, but I tell them they can expect to receive bills each month to replenish their trust because it's required to stay at a certain level so that I can continue to work on their case. But that way they're making monthly payments. I won't let somebody go negative. I won't let somebody become indebted to me. That's not okay. I wouldn't allow that to happen to somebody. But that way they understand how I work and they know that I'm earning it and they know that it's providing value to them and they can see it first. And then they're making—
It lowers their risk and their perceived barrier to entry.
Yes, they're making these lower monthly payments to replenish their trust each month. And that seems to be working really well. So that's another adjustment that I've made. It was kind of an experiment at first, and it ended up to be, I think, the right thing to do in these circumstances because so many people are in fear of being furloughed or having their salary reduced. I mean, that's a very real fear.
It's happening to a large percentage of the population. Absolutely. Every week we get a report that tells us how many more people lost their jobs. It's kind of nuts.
It's amazing. And so that's something that I can do that still allows me to serve people, but help maybe meet them kind of in the middle without compromising on what I know my services are worth ultimately.
Right. Yeah, they're not worth less now, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What else? So we've kind of talked about business aspects. We've talked about your own personal business and how that's evolved. What else are you noticing? Anything that people should really know?
Well, I think when it comes to family law specifically, there are these two big organizations in the United States that they're nationwide organizations that provide guidance for family law attorneys and family law judges and courts. And they've put forth a joint statement that I think includes both good parenting advice during this time for families that all live under one roof, and also good parenting advice for people who are co-parenting. Because if you think about it, co-parenting, I mean, this has really thrown a wrench in people's co-parenting plans. If there's no school, people are trying to work. I mean, we're supposed to shelter in place, but yet the kids are shuttling back and forth. And so a lot of clients have questions about, like, how am I supposed to keep my kids from being exposed to germs when I don't know who they're exposed to at the other parent's house? Questions like that. So the two organizations are the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers and the Association of Family and Conciliatory Courts. So can you say those one more time? I'm going to type them in the comments. Oh, sure. So the first is, they go by the acronyms. The first is AAML, which is the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. And then the second
they had to use the longest words possible, huh?
Oh, well, yeah, they're lawyers.
The American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers?
Lawyers. Yes.
Okay. All right, and the next one?
The second is just as wordy.
Okay.
Association of Family and Conciliatory Court.
Got it.
I can also post these guidelines in the comments or something if you want me to, if you find them useful,
sure.
If anybody finds them useful. So, I mean, there are 7 guidelines. The first 3 are really just kind of basic, kind of good parenting, which I'm sure we're all doing. It's like, don't leave the news on 24/7 because it will cause your kids to panic, right? Okay, we're on that. Wash your hands, be healthy, all things like that. Comply with your court orders as well as is feasible, of course. I find the last 4 of the 7 to be really helpful with my clients who are co-parenting. They are be creative, be transparent, be generous, and be understanding. Okay? So when they say be creative, they're saying you cannot expect the status quo to remain intact in your parenting plan during this time. And to hold the other parent to that standard is unfair. So
these agreements were created with some assumptions that are now no longer apparent.
Yes, and so to bring your former spouse into court on a contempt order right now will fail. And it's not good parenting because increasing conflict in family law cases harms children. And that is what the research tells us over and over again. So adults need to kind of step up and give each other some grace and understand that one parent might get more time than they're allotted right now, and one parent might get less. And these organizations invite the parent who gets more time to encourage closeness with the other parent through FaceTime and Skype, and encourage the other parent to read books or play games via those media if it's possible. I know that some people have come up with very creative variations on their parenting plans, wherein the one parent will have the kids every day during the day, and then the other parent will have the kids every night. And that's a major departure from the parenting plan, but it's what works for that family. People are just doing whatever works right now. So the next one is be transparent, and it's just about being honest, both parents being honest with each other about possible exposure to the virus, so that neither parent is calling their lawyer saying, well, I think that they went to this gathering or whatever. Just be honest with each other. If there's possibility of exposure, share that with the other parent and act accordingly. Be generous about trying to provide makeup time. And then finally, try to be understanding. If the parent who is providing child support loses his or her job, the court expects that person to still contribute as much as is possible, but it's important that both parties are understanding that the financial obligations remain, but that sometimes during a period of financial hardship, expectations might need to change as well. So
yeah, that sounds like common sense, but if it's not spelled out, it could definitely create conflict, right?
Yes, and in family law, there's just so much emotion. People are dealing with their children. And when people are concerned about the safety and well-being of their children, sometimes it can be hard to put logic first, I think.
I mean, you're already dealing with a dynamic that obviously was challenging. That's why they're in the situation they're in. And then you add in this additional stress factor, and then potentially more stress factors with being furloughed or losing employment, or having to work from home and homeschool, as we've talked about. So it kind of boils down to being adults and talking about things and finding that solution, because as Mike said, what applied in the normal times just is not going to apply in this environment. So, communicate and try to find a way to ultimately make it work for all the parties involved here, including the children. That's kind of the general message here.
Yeah, and most people don't need a lawyer to tell them that. I mean,
right.
These are the high conflict cases that really need that extra guidance. Yeah.
I've learned that sometimes even people who don't need people to tell them things still need people to tell them things. That's one thing in my seat that I relearn every day. Thank you, Kate. This has been an enlightening episode. It's been one of our longer ones, so I don't want to let it go too much longer. So we should start wrapping it up now. But before I let you guys go, there's a couple other things I want to throw at you, more on the entertaining front. So I've been bugging Sean, and I think he's starting to prepare. I've been pressing him for a whiskey fact, something to stump us that we didn't know, since this is Whiskey and Wisdom. Sean, what do you got for us today?
Okay, here's an interesting one. Speaking of children, so actually, do you know how Jack Daniels learned to make whiskey? So Jack Daniels actually learned to make whiskey from a Lutheran minister at the age of 6. So without a Lutheran minister at the age of 6 teaching him how to make whiskey, we would not have Gentleman Jack.
That is
Fascinating
pretty
fact.
fascinating.
Can
Yeah.
you teach my 6-year-old?
Might be the new skill for the COVID quarantine for him.
Yeah.
It's only 4 ingredients, right? How hard can it be? In closing here, I wanted to share, and Kate's been bugging me about this, so I told her to hold on and I would talk about it on the show. A lot of questions about the little trip that I just took, and I'm stopping short of calling it a vacation because it really wasn't a vacation. I was still working, but I just went to Gulf Shores, Alabama, and I got a ton of questions. Aren't we locked down? Aren't we in quarantine? How did you get there? How did you find a house? Were the beaches open? So I wanted to talk about that for a second. And it kind of came about when my wife and I were talking, and we decided, man, I'm a California boy, right? Born in Houston. There you go, Neil. Raised in California, warm weather guy. The cold here in the winter just kills me. And so for my own mental health, I needed to be someplace warm. Needed to change the scenery. We've been really, really busy. My butt has been in this chair at least 10 hours a day for 30 straight days. I had too much work to do. Just needed a change of chair. And so we said, well, we're going to be locked in a house. What's the difference if we're locked in a house here or if we're locked in a house that happens to be on a beach looking over the beach? And she thought I was nuts. And I kind of started pressing her a little bit. I'm like, well, we can just do all these things. It would be the same. We can still work. You're working from home a little bit now. She'd have to take a couple of days off because she's in the hospital. She can only work from home certain days doing certain projects. And so we said, we're going to still be quarantined. We're still going to go get groceries and cook. We're still going to order food for takeout. It's going to be exactly the same thing, except when I open my back door, it's going to be 80 degrees, sunny, and there's going to be an ocean to listen to instead of and we could just do this for a week, right? And so we had planned to take our 19-year-old or almost 19-year-old and the animals and everybody. And he was like, no, you guys go. I would rather play video games and have the house to myself for 5 days. So it ended up just being her and I. And we literally did that. And the straw that pressed this from a pipe dream to a reality was another agent here, Sean, I don't know, somebody that you know or not, actually did that. As we were talking to it, she went and did it. And when we saw her down there, and I sent her a message, hey, are the grocery stores open? And are you allowed to book houses on the beach? She said, we literally just booked a house on the beach and I just left the grocery store. Everything's fine. We talked to the police officers who are patrolling. The beaches are closed, but if you have a house on the beach, it's just your backyard and you can go so far. And I'm like, hey, if I can go and park my chair at the edge of my property and look at the ocean, and we ended up being 15 yards, 20 yards away from the water, and it was absolutely paradise. It was warm. There was a storm one night, which was kind of fascinating actually, but ended up being just a great experience. However, the beaches opened today in Alabama. And so we booked and I'll just share, it was a $1,200 a night home that we got for $300 a night because the beaches were closed.
Wow.
And so there was the supply is there, right? But there was no demand. And so it was like a hack, really. We got in where there was no demand. We got 75% off because nobody else wanted to go there. And we had, 90% of the time, maybe even more better of a time than we would have had the beaches been open because it was more privacy. It was quiet. I don't really need to swim in the ocean personally. It was just the experience and being there and the breeze and the feeling and all that. And it ended up being fascinating. So that's the story. That's what we did. And I was still able to work. The last episode was me in my vacation shirt on the beach doing many of the same things. So does that cover? What other questions did you have about that? Because it was amazing.
I think you pretty much covered it on that one, man. I mean, you got your butt down there, had a good time, you got back, and you didn't get a tan, you still look the same.
Yeah. I was born with the tan. So, the reason I wanted to talk about it is because I do feel like there's a little bit of a message in that. And since I'm, again, more soapboxy than I've ever been in my life, I think that we're talking about, and Kate, we were chatting before we went live here about how many positives are in this overall negative situation, right? People are getting sick, and that's terrible. Some of the side effects, there's some silver linings, however, right? But if you are so sensationalized in your point of view to the point where, being scared of one thing makes you scared of everything, then you don't recognize opportunities like that when you see them. And I feel like it was a good call to see this opportunity and take advantage of it. And I feel like that requires an open mind and actually looking at things. And I feel like as we are challenged in returning to normalcy, and as we have these arguments about what's open, what should be open, what's closed, what should be closed, and a lot of us don't get to make those decisions macroeconomically, but we get to make those decisions for ourselves. And I've been sort of preaching since this thing started not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Find opportunities that are safe for you and your family and still continue to do those things, and decide where the line is for you, what's not safe, and don't do those things. But don't throw everything out, I guess, is my message, and ignore opportunities. That, I'm going to throw my wife under the bus here. She was totally closed off to the idea at first. And I think if you asked her today, now that we're done, she wouldn't have traded that experience for the world. Again, we're about to have a baby. Who knows when the next time we're going to see a beach is? And it ended up being time alone for the two of us. And it was just amazing. So, soapbox.
Yeah.
Off.
Sounds wonderful.
Awesome, man. Glad you guys had a good time.
Yeah.
You can call
All right. Any closing thoughts, Sean?
Well, obviously you called that your baby moon. That's your baby moon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Closing thoughts? No, I honestly, Kate, this was awesome. You provided some amazing information and perspective on what's happening that we've not had so far on our whiskey and wisdom scenario here. And, I really think the biggest takeaways for me personally is, for those of you that are out there that are struggling with how to adjust to this new normal in terms of co-parenting, just please talk to each other, have a conversation. You're both struggling. It's not just one of you. You both are struggling, and find a way to make it work, because you guys can do it. I know you can do it. I know you've got the ability to make it happen, and those kids are counting on you to make it happen. So please find a way to do it, because they're worth everything to all of us that are on this episode. Trust me. We all come from a perspective of those kids are everything.
Rooting for you.
Cheers, everybody. Appreciate your time today.
Cheers.
Thank you, both of you.